All right. My name is Brandon. Welcome to the new product seminar at summer camp. Welcome to our Facebook Live members as well. So this year, we kind of actually have a product development group division that is fairly well dedicated to that. So we've got a longer list. So bear with me. I've kind of organized it for better or worse in cool but not really that exciting to oh my god, I want one of those. So we'll jump into it. So, but really pretty convenient end of the spectrum is this little guy. So I don't know how many of you have pulled the transmission out, put a new clutch in your car, forgot to drain the transmission, and as soon as you tilt it backwards, it pees all over you and your floor and everything, and it's just generally irritating. So, yeah, there you go. So $6 pops in there, multiple sizes, so it works on multiple different cars, but easiest thing ever. So. Yeah, yes, sorry. Not very effective looking from here, more effective looking from there. One that actually I'm pretty excited about, we've been selling our jack adapter for years, and it's done really well. Everybody seems to be really, really happy with it. And we always kind of thought, it's good, but we could do better. How can we make it better? Really well, so we tried to kind of incorporate some of that. So this is our new jack adapter. It's been for sale for a little while. It is polyurethane, so don't have to worry about it bending, don't have to worry about it, the powder coat chipping, don't have to worry about it scratching your car, any of that stuff. Still same dimensions, 3-inch base, works with most kind of normal floor jacks. And this slot right here is still the same size. So if your pinch weld is mangled, if you have a non-Miata that has a bigger pinch weld, whatever, that fits in there very nicely. Still supports all the way up here, so your pinch weld is basically floating. But one of the biggest things we did was so now, instead of having to kind of fumble with it and get it all lined up and make sure you don't move anything when you put your jack in place, you just pop it up, pop it on the carcass plastic stuff, and the lift is using my points. But anyway, push it on there, it stays jack over, easy peasy. Only kind of sort of problem with this one is you got to remember it's there. We do have plenty in stock, so if you lose it, you're welcome to purchase another. But try to remember to take it off once you're done with it, because it will stay on there for a big bump. So, other nice thing, it's cheaper. The old one I think was $25. This one's $19. So even easier, even cheaper, better. In the glamorous, or not glamorous, but very important. I don't know where Keith ran. This is extra important for Keith. This is the track speed fuel pump rewire kit. So if you, yeah, there you go. Some are more familiar with FM history than others. Basically, this is to keep you from losing your lead in Targa, Newfoundland. So this guy makes it so that all the draw from your fuel pump, be it an original one and you have old relays, or a big burly one that's now pulling too much through your stock relays, it is all bypassed with this guy. So this actually pulls straight from the battery. It's triggered with the same triggers, but 35 amp relay, 25 amp fuse, and you don't have to worry about the main relay, you don't have to worry about the fuel pump relay with this guy. So for old, kind of tired relays, really not a bad idea. For high power cars running big fuel pumps, really good idea. So pretty straightforward install on that guy.
Brandon, at what point do you consider a relay old?
Ooh, good question. When it quits, yeah. I would say NCs probably are fine, and this is for the NAs and NBs, I should have said that. Just about any NA, probably a lot of NBs. Not a bad idea. That doesn't mean that you have to do it, because you're going to end up stranded if you don't purchase one. But kind of hedge your bets, that type of thing. And if you are doing a big fuel pump, let's just get it. You know, if you're spending that much money on, you need a big fuel pump, you've got that kind of power, do this too. Don't do it halfway. So.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Yeah.
If my relay is old, can I just replace the relay? That would be a little bit easier to pop out a relay and pop in a new one. Sure. Instead of replacing this. Sure. Am I missing the point somewhere here?
No, you could do that. I don't know. So this one's $109. I honestly.
Can you repeat the question?
Sorry. So the question is, why do I need this kit as opposed to just replacing the stock relays? Valid question. And for an old car, just replacing the relays could be the easier solution. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember how much the relays cost. Both of them together might be in the same vicinity. So yeah, fair point. Stock stuff lasts for a long time. This is aimed more at the high power guys, but it will also benefit the older stock stuff.
Thank you.
So if that makes sense. Okay, so another one that fits all years, so this is for everybody, is a Delrin shift knob. So fairly basic, not too fancy, but I was honestly surprised at how big of a difference it makes, and kind of goes back to what Keith was talking about with Bob and your interface with the car and how the things that you touch and where you are in the car can make a really big difference to the enjoyment of the car. This falls into that category. It's a tick taller than stock. Very nice shape. It feels really good in your hand. But one of the big things that we've always shied away with the Delrin knobs is that they're light. So there's not really much of a difference, in my opinion, in terms of vibration that comes through the chassis or through the transmission with the weight, but it's more of an inertia thing. So if it's very light, there's not much inertia, so it kind of degrades the shift quality a little bit, the way it feels. So we put a steel insert in this one. So it's as heavy as you can fairly easily make a Delrin, and it's still cheap, $35. So very with it. This one is out of my car, and I've been driving for a couple. They get a little polished, you know, both visibly, you know, it's a little glossier, and it also is just smoother, you know, kind of surface finish is a little bit nicer. So it self-finishes as you go on. And those are, I mean, $35. Pretty easy to give it a shot. So if you want to spend way more and you feel like you have more money and you don't want to spend $35 on a shift knob, you want to spend more money, well, then we've got that shift knob too. The most over-engineered shift knob I think we've ever seen. I actually brought two out here. So this is heavy. I actually don't recall the numbers, but it is probably twice the weight of this guy. And this guy is pretty close to the stock knob, if memory serves. So the way they did that is it's heavy, but it's also very friendly. So I don't know how many of you guys have aluminum knobs, stainless steel knobs, that kind of thing, and they feel really awesome until it's 10 degrees outside or it's 100 degrees outside, and it's miserable. You can't shift the car because your hand catches on fire, or it's freezing cold and just generally miserable. So the way our friends at Craven Speed did it, there's a big, solid chunk of dense stainless steel. So this guy is heavy. This is your heft, and this is the inertia that I was talking about with the other knob. This guy's plastic. It doesn't weigh anything, but it also doesn't get to be 1,000,000 degrees in the summer. So this is comfortable to use. And then, of course, we have our gratuitous logo on there, because you have to. So there's a cap on top for that. So in my opinion, these two shift pretty similarly in terms of quality. The heavy guy does it with a shorter shift knob, so it's so the shift throw is actually shorter. Not by a lot, but a little bit. But the weight makes up for the lack of leverage type of thing. So all of this over-engineering does cost money, so it's a $120 ship knob. But it is a very, very nice ship knob. So our friends at Craven Speed also make a short shift kit. So we, at FM, we're a little conflicted on short shift kits. Usually, the shift throw is shorter, yes. If that is the only metric by which you measure it, that's great. But it has to work well. It has to feel right. It has to actually work properly. You know, if it feels like you're pulling a 10-pound weight in order to throw your shifter half an inch less, then that's pointless, that's stupid. So this is not that. It is a little bit notchier, but it has the right leverage, all that fun stuff. Made very, very well. It's all mostly stainless steel. You know, this foam thing here is not stainless, but and it comes with the fancy ship knob. So for an ND, this is a really nice setup if you're one looking for a short shift throw. The throw is not exactly long to start off with, but this is a nice way to do it. Again, comes with a ship knob, comes with a tower, and some, you know, all the extra hardware and all the other parts that you need to make it work right. So that is a really nice setup for the ND. You may notice some new shiny wheels. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Advanti Storm S1 wheels. Great wheels, love them, been around for a long time, are no longer around, unfortunately. So these are not Advantis, so I guess not literally the replacement, but as far as we're concerned, these are the replacement. So it's a Sparco FF1. It's a flow-formed wheel, comes in all the normal sizes. It's light. I think the lightest, the 15x7 is maybe 11 something pounds. I want to say the 15x9 is a little less than 14 pounds, if memory serves. Excuse me. 150, 170 bucks, depending on what size you're looking for. One of the neat things, historically, the 6ULs come in Miata specific sizes. Most of us are probably familiar with those. Usually, if you want a 15x8, it comes in a more aggressive offset, which can be a problem for fitment on the earlier cars. This one actually comes in that same aggressive offset, but in a 15x7. So if you want the narrower wheel, you want a 205 tire, but you don't want to stretch it, but you want the little more broad-shouldered look, that type of thing, you can do it in this wheel. So that is one of the many advantages to this wheel. So, but again, inexpensive, light, strong, all that fun stuff. Comes in the gray, comes in the bronze. There's also a black and a white wheel. So, yes.
How light?
How light is the question. So it depends on the sizes. So the 15x7 is like 11 and a quarter, 11 and a half, something like that. I think the 15x8s are around 12 and a half, something in that vicinity. And then the 15x9s are probably 13 and a half, something like that, less than 14 anyway. So, Tire Rack does, these are Tire Rack wheels, so, or well, they're sold through Tire Rack, as in us through Tire Rack. But anyway, so they have all the specific numbers up there. There's always a little bit of noise in there, like the 15x7, 20 millimeter offset bronze wheel is 11.2 pounds, but the exact same size in a black wheel is 11.4 pounds. I've never really understood that. There's a little bit of noise in there. It's probably production tolerances, whatever. So that vicinity. So the one of the other things, this guy has a tire on it. Another of our old reliable choices, the Yokohama S-Drive, is also a no more. But this is the Yokohama Fleva? We call it the Flava Flav. I don't know how you pronounce their actual name, but basically it's the same thing as the S-Drive. It's just new and improved. So if you're looking for a tire, you want a grippy tire, but you don't want an insane tire. You want something that's going to last more than 10,000 miles. You want reasonable, you want something that's quiet. You want something that's reasonable in the wet, all that type of stuff. This is our new go-to. So,
what's the tread wear rating?
so the tread wear rating is 300. Yes, 300. My notes say 300. I'm going with it. So I actually don't know on pricing and sizes, but I would expect comparable to the S-Drives, in that vicinity. So one of the problems that some people have on NDs, and this appears to only be a problem, I was talking to some people about this earlier, appears to only be a problem when you have stock suspension but very stiff sway bars, specifically in the front. You can actually rip these sway bar mounting points off of the subframe, which is dramatic and not good. So we've got a pretty easy economical way to fix that that's on its way. So it's this little stainless steel, or excuse me, not stainless steel, sheet metal guy. So this fits up inside of the sway bar mount, bolts to the subframe, bolts to the top of the mount, and reinforces it. So it reinforces the top of the mount through this bolt right here. And we've got two ways to reinforce the bottom of it, because it'll actually fail on both sides. If you have one of our sway bars, this, and just use your imagination hats and pretend like this is aluminum and not plastic. But this guy will be a billet sway bar bracket to hold the bushing for our sway bars, and then it's got this little tab over here that allows it to bolt on to this tab here, and it keeps it from ripping off. So that reinforces it. If you don't have FM sway bars, you can use the generic one, which is a little tab. So nothing terribly fancy, but it gets the job done, keeps it from ripping off. So
why does it rip off?
So it rips off because, so the question is, why does the subframe, the sway bar mounting points rip off? They rip off because if all of your roll stiffness is achieved by the sway bar, as opposed to the sway bar and the springs, then all of that load is going to go into the sway bar, which means it's going into the sway bar mounting point, and that is now your weak point in the equation. So if you have, say you do just our sway bars and you're autocrossing it like crazy, I would strongly recommend these. Say you do our stage 2 kit, so shocks, springs, and sway bars. Well, now the springs are handling a fair amount of the roll stiffness. These sway bars are also handling a fair amount, but a reasonable amount of the roll stiffness. I mean, you could do this, hedge your bets, safety, sure, but you're probably not going to need it. So if the loads are kind of distributed more equally, you should be good. If you're held to the only thing you can do is a front sway bar, in your autocross class, for example, I'd pick up a set of these before you have to replace your subframe. Because I guess you can weld it together, but it would be ugly and a headache and not very enjoyable. So anyway, okay, so we're getting into the, for me, more exciting, oh, I missed one. So let me roll back to the wheels. This is kind of a late addition, kind of. So this is the Cosi K1. The K1 has been around forever. It's a good wheel, it's a light wheel, strong wheel, all that fun stuff, and now it's available in black. So if you've always wanted the K1, but you've always felt that silver is just too shouty or not the one you want, whatever, now we've got black. So there you go. Otherwise, no real changes. It's still the same K1 it's been for years. Yes, and there they are in silver on Kyle's car on the left, if anyone would like a comparison. Thank you. Okay, so a lot of you are probably pretty familiar with our frame rails. They've been around for a long time. They work really well, but we wanted to, well, twofold. We wanted to improve them. We also wanted to keep them here. We've had some supplier issues and costing issues and that kind of thing, so the prices went through the roof and we had to do a lot of back-end stuff that you don't care about, but the short version is the fact that they're still here is an achievement in and of itself. That's the boring stuff, but it's the important stuff. But if we were tweaking things, let's make them better. So The first thing we did, actually not literally, this was kind of the last thing we did, but was gratuitously add our logo again. Otherwise, they are pretty much the same except for one significant change. You may see, you can kind of barely see, but anyway, there's some holes in there. Take my word for it, there are holes there. There are weld nuts behind those holes. So we have done testing, Kyle, wherever he has run off to, was abusing his own car to test this and to figure out how we can improve things as much as possible. Continuous improvement, right? So the frame rails we discovered have, what, a 17% increase in the torsional rigidity?
About,
yeah, of the car. And that's actually, if you already have a set of frame rails, congratulations, now we can quantify, it's about a 17% improvement. But we looked at our old butterfly brace, and we tried to figure out how we could keep that in existence, improve it, how can we make it better, stronger, cheaper, easier, et cetera, et cetera. So those weld nuts are how we did that. So these guys are still $250, just like they have been for a long time. Actually, we dropped the price, come to think of it. And this, admittedly, slightly confusingly named now, is our new butterfly. So these guys, this one bolts onto the rear. So I only have so many hands, but.
Which car do these go on?
So these are for the NAs and the NBs.
Okay.
Yeah, and they fit all of them, and they will fit 1/6 NAs now as well. So hey, thank you, lovely assistant. So the rear guy, right there, thank you, goes on. This is the rear of the frame rail. So there are two holes, 1, 2, fingers aren't that long. So they bolt on there on either side. The front guy, there you go, thank you, bolts on to the one bolt on the front here, and then bolts on to the front subframe, the rear of the front subframe as well. So we, and Kyle, slightly terrifying looking science experiment, but regardless, we found that it is 7% stiffer than our old butterfly. It is 10% lighter. It is still for sale, which is an achievement because, again, with material costs and all that fun stuff, the butterfly was just not plausible. And I don't know how many of you have butterfly braces and have pulled the center section out to do a clutch or anything like that. It's doable, it's fine. A little bit of a pain, kind of difficult to access the bolts, all that kind of stuff. These guys, bolt here, here, super easily accessible, no big deal, takes you 2 minutes.
Can this bolt onto the old system?
No.
Dang.
So if you have a welder and a little bit of ingenuity, sure.
No.
But you do need those things. Yeah, the frame rails are very, very similar, but if you look closely, the pattern of the triangles is a little bit different, and that's because these points ended up where there were voids before. So is it possible? Yes. Ask me how we did our testing. Is it something that I would recommend for you? I mean, honestly, it'll work fine, but you do need a welder in order to do it. So. Yes, this is all stainless steel. Everything's stainless.
Tubular or solid?
Tubular.
Does it reduce ground clearance?
It does, but just a little bit.
What was the question? I can hear.
Sorry. Does it reduce ground clearance? I'll let Kyle take this one. I think you'll know it better than me.
It's about equitable with a factory NB brace. How it hangs down in the middle, it's about equitable with that.
But I mean, at the mounting points, since they're no longer on the inside of the rail, they're on the bottom of the rail, right?
Yes, and if you come up close, you can see that there's countersunk holes in the flanges.
Right.
The flanges are 10 millimeters thick, and so there's a countersink to protect the bolt heads. So if you do bottom out, you don't have to worry about ripping off the tops of your bolts.
Yep. And to back up to that one for just a second, the old butterfly brace had to have adjustable clearance in the center, and for a lot of exhaust systems, I suspect they were dropped down, and that probably means that it netted actually lower, or at the very least comparable, but probably lower than this setup is. And this is going to be a more stout setup as well.
It looks like this replaces then that front subframe cross brace that comes on cars that have them. Years that have them.
So he was asking, he says this looks like it will replace the front subframe brace that goes across the rear of the front subframe. And Kyle?
It will not replace it. It will sit, this will sit slightly aft of it.
Okay.
So both can go on at the same time.
Okay. It doesn't use the same bolt holes?
No, there's bolt holes in the subframe for that brace.
Right.
And so this actually uses the subframe tying points at the chassis.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
What's the total torsional rigidity increase with the butterflies and the rails?
With both of them, it's about 30% over stock.
What's the price?
Good question. So the price is $249 for the rails, $479 for the complete kit with the butterflies.
My 99 Sport has a lot of bracing on the bottom,
Mhm.
tubular bracing. Do I have to remove any of that?
So his 99 Sport has a lot of bracing to start off with. I don't think any of that needs. The Mazda Speed has one brace that needs to be removed.
The rear brace, I'm sorry, not used to this. The rear brace would interfere with the frame rail itself since the rear brace does bolt to the frame rail. The front brace, there would be an interference with the front butterfly. So this would replace any of the factory bracing.
He's asking about the 99 Sport, not the 2001 stuff. 99 Sport, I think it's typically the ladder on the rear subframe and the cross on the front.
And it's the short ladder, not the long one.
Yeah, the short ladder. So I think you'd be compatible with all the 99 Sport stuff. The 2001 and later Sport stuff, that's where you get that cross brace.
Correct.
Kyle, say that again?
Okay, so I'll just repeat
Not the correct word.
Okay, I'll repeat what Keith said. Keith said on the 99 Sports, there's a ladder brace on the rear subframe. That gets to stay. And the brace on the front subframe, that also gets to stay.
Yeah, so it does replace the 01 and later bracing, of some of it, all of it, but it does not on the 99s, on the earlier stuff, no, all that stuff stays. So, and there are a couple of extra things designed into this, baked into this design for stuff pending. So we have all sorts of nefarious plans up our sleeves for new and exciting things coming down the pipeline. So that is very, very premature, so I'm not going to talk about any of it, but exciting stuff that's coming up. Go ahead and sneak out of here, Kyle. So we're pretty excited about that one. That one, you know, the butterfly brace has always been very good. There's been lots of press and all kinds of stuff about bolting the butterfly brace on. Takes 100,000 miles off of your odometer. This is no different. This is the same. Well, I shouldn't say it's no different. It's that plus an extra 10% ish in stiffness and lighter and much easier for maintenance. So we're pretty excited about it and kind of future-proofing for our other fancy things that we've got in mind.
And Bluetooth?
Who's products? Autocross competitors?
So I'll get to you in a sec. So the question is, who are these products aimed at? These products are aimed at Miata owners. So this is the kind of thing that's good for anybody.
Why do you need it?
So you need it because the stiffer your chassis is, every time the latest, shiniest pickup truck, any kind of anything comes out, usually they say an X% improvement in torsional rigidity. Because the more solid the structure of the vehicle is, the better it feels, the better your suspension works. Because right now, you could kind of a way to simplify it is to say that when your wheel hits a bump, 80% of the deflection is in the suspension, 20% of the deflection is in the chassis. In a perfect world, there would be 0% deflection in the chassis and 100% deflection in the suspension. Does that make sense? So whether it's, if it's a full track car, you're going to have a cage. This stuff is probably redundant. It's probably not going to be that much of an improvement. But whether you're autocrossing, whether you're a daily driver, whether you're going back roads on a weekend cruiser, whether you're driving to work daily every day, and that's it, this is going to be an improvement for every car, regardless. So it's kind of, you know, if you get into an Audi or a BMW and they say, oh, it feels like it's milled from a solid chunk of billet, it's just a very, very solid car. I'm not going to tell you this is going to make your Miata feel like that, but it's moving in that direction. So, is there a question back here? No? Okay. All right, so anyway, I'm really excited about that. It's good to kind of get numbers behind it, do a little more scientifically. So, different numbers that we can all relate to, dollar numbers. So, this is our cross-flow radiator. A lot of people probably recognize it. We designed this years ago and basically proved its efficacy. It works very, very well. And it hasn't been that expensive, but it has not been that cheap either. This is basically the same thing that we've always been producing, not really any different, but now it's $350 instead of $470, and prior to that, I don't know, $550? I can't remember what it was before that. But the short version is we brought the price down quite a bit. So same improvements, same cooling, same very, very effective upgrade for a lot less money.
And which car is this for?
Sorry, that would be an obvious question. This is for the 90 to 97, or sorry, 90 to 2005 Miatas. So.
And it fits your fan kit that is...
It does fit our fan kits, yes. Yep. And we have made some slight tweaks for improved fitment and that kind of thing. So that there are some additional kind of detailing things in here, but the biggest thing is admittedly the price. Yes?
Can you still use the factory fans with it?
So the question is whether we can use the factory fans with it? Absolutely. There is some modification that needs to be made, so you have to be comfortable trimming a little bit of plastic and that type of thing. But otherwise, yeah, no problem.
Is there any, have you guys thought about trying to optimize it for the NB chassis versus a one-size-fits-all NA and NB chassis?
So the question is whether we've tried to optimize it for the NB versus making a one-size-fits-all. No. There are some small installation things, you know, the AC condenser has to move to the front of its brackets, that type of thing. I don't know how we could improve upon that.
No, not the mounting as much as, you know, in an NB, you can make the core 30 millimeters wider. You could increase the size of the tanks, stuff like that. Increase
Okay.
the cooling capacity, not the mounting stuff.
Gotcha. So he's saying we could increase the cooling capacity. Admittedly, I haven't looked at it. I'm gonna guess no. To be frank, in order to bring the price down, we've got to do big volume. And if we're splitting it into two different models, that makes it a lot harder to do big volume, and that's kind of the price of doing business. So that's an intriguing thought, though. I hadn't thought about that, and I don't know how much wider it could be.
I've done the measurements.
I bet you have. So that's probably 30 millimeters is probably exactly it. But I've got something else that you might be interested in coming up next. So stay tuned. Yes.
So is this something that people do when their radiator needs replacing, or is this for added cooling capacity, or why do we want this product?
So the question is, why do I want this? Because it's shiny in it and it has our logo on it. No, really, if it's a completely stock car, naturally aspirated, you have no interest in doing any future improvements to power-wise, this would work really, really well. It would be awesome. I would recommend it, and you don't really need it. Stock radiator is probably going to get you there fine. The harder you push the car, whether that's power, whether that's driving, whether that's your environment, that kind of thing, the more you need better cooling. And the Miata cooling system is not really spectacular to start off with. So this is going to shed the heat much more effectively than the stock radiator will. So if the stock radiator is sufficient, maybe you don't need to spend the money. But this one does do a much better job, and will kind of future-proof you a little bit, if you want to put it that way.
And it's not plastic.
And it's also not plastic, yes. That
It's a
is,
stock, and it hasn't failed yet, it's about to.
It's about two.
yeah, if you have a stock radiator and it's black, awesome, no worries. If it's green or if it's brown, you can get rid of it. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. So moving on. So kind of, in my opinion, saved the best for last year, probably because I've invested a slightly obscene amount of my time in this. But we have a new coolant reroute. So reroutes have been around for a long time. We're going to do kind of a deep dive into the development process of this. So I'll talk, that's next. So I'll talk about kind of more of the details there. But, excuse me, this, again, I'll talk about the details later, but the short version is the reroute is a proven design. The logic and why you would want a reroute for an NA or an NB Miata, sorry to answer that question, is fairly well established. It's more intelligent coolant flow is the short version. So we wanted to make something that has as few failure points as possible, the best performance possible, the best fitment possible, and we had another thing up our sleeves. So I'll go into, sorry, I'm getting my am I getting my 5-minute warning? Okay, that works out. I'll give you all the details in the deep dive, so I'll try to keep it separate. The short version is, this works really well. We've tested the flow is very good. The big differentiator here is the single piece design. The thermostat is actually in the head. It's not removed from the head at all. That we use factory gaskets everywhere, even on the thermostat. Like if you remove the thermostat neck, there's no gasket there, there's no schmutz there, there's a factory O-ring, just like Mazda intended. But the biggest thing is that we're rerouting the coolant from the turbo. So this is beneficial for naturally aspirated cars, but it's really beneficial for turbo cars because try to multitask here, basically turbo routing, and even from Mazda, even the Mazda speeds, they take hot water out of the engine, they put it into the turbo, and this is the same for our turbo kits as well. Make it hotter, make it quite a bit hotter actually, and then put it right back into the engine with no cooling whatsoever. This setup, it's kind of hard to see from a distance, but there's two passages in here. The big guy is for the thermostat, of course, and this is a prototype version, so there are some detail-y things, such as the really sharp edge in there that will be chamfered in production. But regardless, this passage over here feeds coolant to the heater core and to your aftermarket temp sensor if you have one, but it also feeds the water to the turbo. So you take turbo water from here, okay, it's still hot water. We couldn't solve that problem, I don't think, without making it real complicated. There's nothing to be done about that. But this hole up here is where the turbo water returns. So the water comes back into here. There's no way you can see in there, but take my word for it. The water comes out here and goes to the radiator. So we take hot water, we make it hotter. That's still bad. Nothing we can do about that. And then we put it into the radiator to make it cooler. So instead of the turbo adding a significant heat load that is not corrected, it still adds a heat load and it corrects it. And there are all sorts of other details that I will save for my next seminar, but the short version is awesome. So, and as with not everything, but the vast majority of our parts, made in the US, down in Georgia. So we try to keep everything domestic as much as possible, not 100%, but as much as we can. Yes?
Electric pump on that? Does that have an electric pump?
No, this does not have an electric pump. No, that would probably triple or quadruple the price by the time you have the whole package done. Ask me how I know.
That mounts on the front, what goes on the back?
This mounts on the back. So this is the reroute. Yeah, it comes out, and actually, yes, sorry, I forgot that I have my prop over here. I don't know if I have enough wire to get over there.
It's ready for it.
Yes, it's the, it stands out on this engine. Sorry, it's pretty gross engine, apologies there. But yeah, so you can see it bolts on right here in place of basically where your heater core feed is from. So your heater core comes out of that one right there. Your turbo feeds out, or this is the feed to your turbo, and this comes back in from the turbo. We do have, squeeze back in over here. We do have replacement plates. This guy, again, imagine this is metal. This is kind of all giant rush to get it done at summer camp kind of stuff. But regardless, this guy replaces the thermostat housing on the front of the engine. It's got a hole for a temp sensor. It's got a hole for the 1.6 fan switch. So that's the easy button. This is the more complicated button if you want to remove the thermostat neck altogether. Really, aesthetics are probably the only reason to do that, but hey, everybody likes a clean engine bay. So if you want to take the front of the engine off, the timing belt covers on both the thermostat neck, and bolt this in its place, there you go. I don't know if you can ask a question or not.
Is that new EGR, or that new reroute kit compatible with EGR?
It is. That's a pretty important part. Thank you, man in the corner. So yes, there is an EGR pipe on that engine. It does fit with EGR. There are no hammers involved, and it fits with all years of EGR. It fits with our EGR pipe. It fits with it. Easy peasy.
Yeah, price.
$299. The turbo, if you do have a turbo, it'll be a little extra for the necessary fittings and such. $60, something like that. So a little bit more, but the reroute would be $299.
Someone online wants to know the timeline for availability.
Timeline for availability is probably about a month. We're trying to get it. We need to, these are actually, literally like 3 hours ago was the first time I'd seen these in metal. So we need to make sure that these are actually good. We've done a whole bunch of plastic fitting with 3D printed prototypes, which I'll talk about next. But regardless, short version, hopefully about a month. Hopefully shorter, but a month should be a pretty realistic guess on that. Any other questions now that I'm pretty sure I've officially gone over? But I've gone over into myself, so I don't know if that's a big deal. I have one more thing for you.
Brandon.
Yes.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Does that replace it, or is it compatible with the Super Miata 949
Reroute kit.
Reroute kit? Yes.
It is a replacement. So they both serve the same purpose, and honestly, the Super Miata kit is a very nice one. I'll go into more details before. This one is nicer, I would argue, maybe biased, but nicer all the way around, and then it does the turbo water, which I think is a pretty huge benefit. So, any other questions before we wrap up? All right, so we are going into a deep dive on this in 15 minutes. So if you want to see kind of the development process, how we designed it, how we kind of looked at the ideas, how we came up with stuff, the different iterations and prototypes we went through, stay tuned. We'll be going through that. Also, do not forget to turn in the ballots for the car show. I believe now is pretty much your last chance to do that. And there's a GoPro. I don't know why.
Somebody lost.
Oh, hey. It's not our GoPro. Is it yours? Yes, yours? All right, there we go. Winner. Okay. All right, so that's it. Thank you for your attention. If you have questions, come and find us. And again, deep dive in 15 minutes.